Thank you so much. Wow, what a fascinating set of presentations you put together. Everything that's been said basically resonates with me. I have walked around the corner. Um, in fact, if my parents hadn't moved from the Bahamas just before I was born, I would be part of the region, but they moved back to Europe. So I'm not as cool as I could have been. Um, I'm the research manager in one of the departments for governance and institution building. And one of the themes that I'm hearing throughout the presentations is this idea of how do you lock AI into existing systems of governance and of data? And that's really what I'm going to touch on. Now, the bank is a very big place, very diverse place with lots of the themes you've heard. So if this is only one piece of the bank, if you'd like me to put you in touch with members of our legal team in terms of our, computational teams, etc., I can. But I wanted to just take one of the themes that I've heard a good amount about, which is how do we actually make sure the ecosystem in which this new intervention is put is a healthy one. So I'm from the development economics place. I'm going to click that one more time, hopefully. Yeah, shall I try and stand up? There we go. And so I come from the part of the World Bank that is really investing in the data and analytics and AI part of the machinery, and that part is called DEC, the Development Economics Vice Presidency. I collaborate with operations very closely on something we call the Bureaucracy Lab. The idea being that we take data and evidence to how we actually build government itself. And what I want to talk about is, firstly, is why do we think about data as useful? Doesn't law do the majority of the job? Can't laws just stamp out corruption? Why do we need data and analytics? And I take inspiration from a piece of someone who I work very closely with, Christian Schuster, who studied merit-based laws for recruitment, saying if you're going to recruit someone, these are the regulations around them being merit-based. And what he saw was, this is the large dashed line, that over the last 40 years or so, there's been a huge expansion in the legal framework for merit-based hiring around the world. But if you look at objective assessments of how meritocratic hiring is, it's been broadly flat, and that's the small dash line. And this graph I can give you for most elements of corruption in government is that law is a very powerful signal. It's a norm. It changes the vision. But what you need to do, as he puts it, is best practice laws don't lead to an improvement in best practice. But that doesn't mean that improvements in the associated management practices don't achieve good things for government. So what we need to do is use the data and AI systems to move management to the vision that is put in place by laws. And the way that we think about that is, what data do we need to put into a healthy ecosystem for government, and what skills do we need? And really the main message I'm going to try and put across, and it's been reflected so far, is this. Any single intervention, be it ledgers, AI, is not going to have a catalytic effect on fighting corruption or changing government if it's not in a broader, healthy system of data analysis. That means you need staff. It means you need clean, quality, curated data, and so forth. So when we say, how is AI going to affect corruption? What we're actually asking is, can I create a data ecosystem that is actually fit for purpose, that's strong enough to identify and respond to corrupt practices? The way we think about this is, government has a huge volume of existing data that's come from the fact that we've moved almost all government work, particularly in the region, onto digital systems. And what does this mean? It means that every time someone acts, a procurement officer logs in and chooses a particular price for a particular product, or a payroll officer pays someone, that granular picture of exactly what government looks like is now on a server somewhere in the world. And by putting them together, we have the most refined picture of all time of what government looks like. The LAC as a general entity has been the leading region. If you look at this graph, it is Latin America and the rest of the Americas that has really pushed the agenda on getting to the frontier of MIS in government. The question is, can we now use that data? We've got a research program, an operational research program called Government Analytics, which tries to help build the skills of government officers to actually identify and respond to corruption using this existing data. The admin data, audit data that's there can be capitalized on to say where is corruption and how can we respond to it. You know, a lot of government data is often collected for administrative or audit purposes, but why can it not be repurposed and used for analytical purposes? So, you know, where is corruption? What do we mean by corruption? If I say there's a lot of data on corruption, what do we mean by corruption? Well, let's think about government as a production function. It has inputs like personnel and goods. It has processes and cultures. And government data system typically collects some sort of indicator of every single one of these. So you can think in terms of personnel in your payroll records. Who's being paid, what amounts for what tasks. You know, HRMIS says how people are moving through the service. Goods, you have procurement prices and so forth. And corruption can occur throughout this production function. So you could have ghost workers in payroll, you could have procurement fraud. What your digital systems in government do is allow you to get to a really refined nature of what specifically do you mean by government. So that's the first thing. What do you mean by a government entity? What do you mean by corruption in there? And here is descriptive data on exactly how it's happening. Basic data analysis without AI enhancements is already a powerful tool for assessing corruption prevalence. Before you even use AI, and in fact, it should say not here, I noticed this, government is not fully exploiting its existing data, talent, or opportunity to save money and increase efficiency. So before we even bring the black box of AI to the table, there's a huge amount that can be done with your existing data. And it's extraordinary. We have a fellowship, which I'm going to mention at the end, and we've brought a lot of folks from the region, from the US all the way down to Chile, and each of them have paid for their salary 1,000 times over by detecting a single anomaly in government. Your data scientists, your data analysts, your economists, whoever it is, give them the time to use the administrative data that you already have in your servers, and they will pay for their salary and the rest of the data scientists that you're going to hire in the next 10 years. Here's an example. I was talking about merit-based recruitment. This is survey data across countries as to what proportion of respondents in government say they got their job through personal connections. It varies a little bit. Nepal a little bit higher, Brazil a little bit lower, Estonia somewhere in there. But what if we deep dive into Chile's organization by organization responses? So this says what proportion of public servants in Chile were recruited based on standard meritocratic ideals, which is written exams and standardized interviews. Within Chile, there is huge variation. So a single number, a single law is not telling us anything about the meritocratic practices inside Chile's government. There's a huge distribution from 3% to 64%. And this is the second message of this talk, which is government is typically very diverse. And you know how you can look at that diversity using the microdata, which was the first point of this talk. So you're going to find when you open up your microdata, there's this huge diversity, and it's already going to pay for itself in terms of identifying corruption or just identifying inefficiency. So what actually happened was when these graphs were shown to Chile's government, they were able to put in new laws and new management practices to respond and bring those averages up across the board. So the microdata interacts with law in a really effective way. Now, this can be done with corruption. The bank does invest a lot in procurement dashboards, trying to work with governments to capitalize on their procurement data. And yes, we have started to install AI-type applications inside these dashboards. But before you even get to AI, they're doing a good job. They're highlighting, red flagging where prices are a little unusual, where the same person is paying a higher price for the same goods as someone else in a similar organization. And so, you know, in some sense, before you get to the question of how does AI help us respond to corruption, we should think about the data system as a whole. AI, of course, as we've heard a number of times today, can be catalytic. It facilitates the government analytics of corruption when it's embedded in the broader ecosystem. AI can improve the baseline administrative data for investigating questions. It can help you clean your existing data sets. It can help you repurpose them, as we heard from the TI. AI can identify patterns and trends that standard methods may fail to detect. But it needs, as we heard a number of times, effective analysts who are schooled not just in AI, but in standard data analysis. And AI can support localized solutions to address specific issues of corruption. So in some sense, the idea here is not to try to find a hammer, but to find a diagnostic tool that we can work with public servants to dissipate the dangers of corruption, to dissipate the dangers of mismanagement. You don't need to stamp something out if you have the tools to actually create incentives to actually have them vanish. Is the region already doing this? We did a piece of work where we assessed the extent to which these ecosystems existed across Latin America and the Caribbean. It's downloadable, and you'll see that actually a lot of data systems already have some AI component into them. Some are jumping too far ahead. They're not cleaned up effective ecosystems in their own right. And so this report tries to say, what are the steps you can take to actually improve the quality of your existing data systems and then apply AI? About 96% of data systems in the region are doing some sort of descriptive analysis. You have analysts working on them, and about half are using some predictive model, but it varies a lot by type of management information system. So, is government analytics, is this healthy ecosystem and building it just for corruption? It can do so much more. It can be an approach to state reform. You can actually manage your organizations with the data that you have. One example being fiscal sustainability. This is an example from Brazil, where Brazil's wage bill was about to explode, and it was only in the micro data that it was identified. So my three messages are, corruption can happen anywhere in a public system, and so you need to get some rich picture of what the world looks like across your system, and that's your microdata, your administrative microdata. You're going to find it's very diverse, and therefore you're going to have to look for places where you can intervene in really targeted and isolated ways on the specific set of problems that institution, even unit, has. And thirdly, changing the system is going to require more than just using AI as a single tool, but making it part of a healthy ecosystem. I've asked that the different references that I mentioned today is sent round to you. We have the Government Analytics Handbook. It's in Spanish, abridged. That will come to you. CLAD, the Latin American Development Association, who have worked with us on a charter for building these healthy ecosystems, will also come to you. So you'll see there's a lot of tools, in addition to what my colleagues have already said, to try and strengthen your ecosystem as well as your AI use. Thank you so much.
Muchísimas gracias al experto Daniel Rogel del Banco Mundial por tan importante información que ha compartido y sobre todo también todos los estudios que se han realizado sobre qué estamos haciendo y cómo se están utilizando los países el tema de la inteligencia artificial. Nos sorprende mucho que todavía estamos en la etapa descriptiva, del uso descriptivo de la inteligencia artificial, pero también vamos avanzando hacia la parte de diagnóstico y y de análisis. Sumamente valioso los tres mensajes que nos ha dejado realmente. La corrupción está en todas partes y el tema del potencial que tiene la inteligencia artificial para ir siendo tan diverso el Estado y siendo tan diversas las instituciones y tan diversas las modalidades de corrupción a lo interno de la administración, poder con el uso de la inteligencia artificial profundizar, eso nos haría o nos hace mucho más eficientes en la localización y la prevención de la corrupción administrativa. La verdad que muchísimas gracias por estos aportes, muchísimas gracias por la información que nos ha compartido y también recordarles a todos, tal como lo ha expuesto, que todas estas presentaciones estarán siendo compartidas con todos ustedes y subidas por la Secretaría Técnica en el portal Anticorrupción de las Américas, de tal manera que más adelante ustedes podrán también consultar todas estas presentaciones tan valiosas de nuestros expertos. Muchísimas gracias, Daniel Roger, nuevamente por tu presentación y por estar aquí con nosotros.